Welcome to FishPal's Focus. Today's guest is Jim Curry. Jim is the UK sales agent for Guideline and Untamed Angling European Ambassador. He's a renowned AAP guide master instructor who runs the Yorkshire Fly Fishing School in Northern England, offering tuition on the stunning rivers and lakes of Yorkshire, Cumbria and Lancashire. He's a writer and a rod tester for magazines, including Trout and Salmon magazine. Jim is widely regarded as one of the best and most knowledgeable teachers of fly fishing and fly casting in the UK. Welcome and thank you for joining me today, Jim Curry.
Thank you, Anne. Lovely to see you. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How have you been coping during lockdown?
Yeah, pretty good. I just kind of went into super training mode, really. You know, I kind of started running and cycling and doing triathlon. So it's just that side of things kept me kind of sane, really. Because that lockdown with the fishing was tough for all of us, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I think doing the exercise, because I know at the start of June I did a John O'Groats to Land's End virtual with with 4 other people, and we did it in 24 days. We were called the strollers because we weren't very fit, but the mental aspect of that has been brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I kind of, both of us have chatted in the past about the running and everything, and I think the exercise for me became increasingly important once the fishing was out of the equation, really, because the fishing has been responsible not just for kind of giving me a career in the industry, but just kind of banishing all kinds of demons and keeping me sane and being that safe place, you know, down by the water. So losing that, and I think having the exercise to fall back on was really cool. So no, I just went into beast mode with the exercise and I just went completely bonkers.
I know. If anybody has a look on your Instagram, you can see photos of you. Because you do triathlons, don't you?
I do now. I just did a half Ironman 2 weeks ago, and then I've got another one in about end of September if it goes ahead. And then the plan is to do Ironman Barcelona, the full one, in October next year.
Oh, good luck on that. Fishing, because you've been in the world of fishing for many years. When did you start fishing? How old were you?
I guess I grew up in a fishing and shooting household, which, you know, I was very fortunate for that. So at weekends, it was either go fishing or shooting with your dad or stay at home. So we just kind of went. That worked beautifully for me. It worked less well for my sister and my foster brother, who weren't that kind of keen on it. But for me, it was just awesome, man. So I kind of guess we started, like most people, I guess, started fishing maggots and worms and floats in the farm streams and on little lakes on family holidays down in Cornwall and places like that. And then Dad started taking some fishing on the River Findhorn. Mm-hmm. So some of my earliest memories are up in that, around Glenfiness, Leithen Estates, around that area. And then we fished that river together for a lot of years. We ended up catching a lot of fish out of it. But when we first started, we were hopeless. We kind of both learned together. We didn't have a clue what we were doing then.
But it's a beautiful river, and I've got a fabulous photo here. Tell us a little bit about this photo.
Oh yeah, that's me with hair, obviously, with my friend at the time, Peter, with my biggest trout that actually got a pretty good tail on it, that from a rainbow trout perspective. That was at a little holiday cottage, down at Tintagel in Yorkshire. And I think I fed about 3 kilos of sweet corn into the lake with my float and my hook. And finally, that thing, which looked covered in straw and is obviously dead, I think I'm probably grasping some money to pay for it in my right hand by the looks of things. Yeah, so I mean, listen, that was one of those kind of moments that really started the whole thing rolling for me, really. And I was at school. You know, I was one of those geeky kids at school who was avoiding homework, getting beaten up, and actually turning in. And for me, fishing was at an early age was just a place that was just a super safe place and a super fun place for me from that moment on, really, I guess.
And it's a canny fish as well.
Yeah, right. I was made up with it.
I'd be made up with that fish. So school was not really a great place for you. You went and followed the passion of fishing, yeah, and went into the industry as a gillie. So whereabouts did you start as a gillie then?
I was on the west coast of Scotland on Letter Estates, up towards Gairloch and Ullapool, around that neck of the woods. Yeah, I started when I was 17 years old, so that's nearly 33 years in the industry now.
Wow.
So old, my God.
Not at all.
So it was an amazing place to learn. You know, I actually started on as a ponyman, and a ponyman was job basic. It was to take the ponies in the morning, walk them up the hill, wait for the stalker to shoot the deer, strap the deer to the ponies, walk the ponies back down to the bothy, grab at them and clean up the deer and everything. And then in the spare time, we used to fish. And we had some fantastic brown trout fishing. We had, and Marie still had quite a few sea trout in. That's how long ago it was. That's how old I am. So we'd still fish the kind of little streams and the little burns running into Marie on an evening. And then we had fishing on the Ewe, and then we had fishing on the Little Grinyard. It was a big estate. It was 130,000 acres, so it was a fair old chunk of Scotland. And then, fortunately, because they knew I loved my fishing so much, they moved me from the ponies. Never been good with horses anyway. To kind of more fishing related tasks and stuff. Yeah, so they did that for 3 years till I was probably just over 3 years. I think I came back when I was just short of 21, back to England.
And what kind of tips would you give to people who want to get a job in the world of fishing?
I think the number one I would suggest is just to do as much fishing as humanly possible. I think don't worry about likes on Facebook and how many friends you've got on Instagram. Just, you know, that is a skill undoubtedly, and it is a great platform to give you the exposure you need to get yourself on the ladder, whether you want to be a guide around the world or a fishery manager or a gillie. It can help, but ultimately, as much exposure as Facebook will give you, if you haven't got the background and served an apprenticeship, it will expose you. So there are no shortcuts. So go fishing, enjoy yourself, and don't take it too seriously. Fishing, just go and enjoy it.
I know people do take it seriously, don't they? And I think sometimes people lose the fact that we're going fishing.
I know. For sure.
Yeah.
100%. And it's quite a complicated sport now. If you think about all the kit and the gadgets that we can bolt on every year, there's new products from all the retailers, and it's a bit bamboozling. I understand that, and sometimes I sit in the sales meetings. I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna wrap my head around another line concept. But ultimately, it's a very simple sport, and you know that. We both know that. We both spent enough time in our waders now throwing these fly rods around. It is. You are, as long as if you appreciate where you are, that you are entering an environment which is not your own, and the more time you spend by the water, not necessarily even with a rod in your hand, the more you absorb where you are and how to approach the rivers and all these incredible fish, then it is pretty goddamn simple. We do a great job of trying to complicate the whole thing, but it is ultimately, it's a very simple sport, which is good because I'm a simple man, as you know.
Well, do you know something? When I first started, it was a massive learning curve for me. And what I did do is I actually went and spoke to a gillie and said, could I come along and just walk the river with you? And he just talked me through the water and all the pools and everything. And that's how I was able to get some knowledge right from the start. Because back then, being a female on your own, it wasn't the easiest, to actually go fishing. Now, you are part of Guideline.
Yeah.
And we've just been, before we started this, we were chatting and I said, do you know something? I've got my fishing rod right next to me and it's my Guideline rod.
You see.
So, you're the UK sales agent for Guideline.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about Guideline, because for people that don't know who Guideline is.
Yeah. So they are, I've been with Guideline for about 5 years now. My first proper job, I guess, that wasn't working for myself, so that came as a bit of a shock to the system, but I couldn't have got involved with a better company, really, for a couple of reasons. Guideline are a company which is 26, 27 years old now. They are, they were born out of a group of friends who are absolute fly fishing assassins, trout fishermen and salmon fishermen. Those guys are still involved today as the directors and sales managers and shareholders. So it's a company which has its roots in Scandinavia, in Norway and Sweden. That's where the two offices are. All the rods, the reels, the lines are tested in arguably some of the toughest, roughest, hard-fought battles you will ever find when you come to hooking salmon and trout and big fish in wild places. So the stuff stands up incredibly well. The nice thing about it, Anne, really, is that the company's grown significantly, undoubtedly. We have in live staff mode, I would suggest, arguably today, right now, probably the finest rod designer and hardware designer. Life, I think, is his late 50s, early 60s. God, he's going to kill me if he's not 60. But A, he's one of the nicest guys on the planet. B, he's an ex-world champion caster. C, he's a fantastic fisherman. But his product knowledge, when it comes to designing fly rods, reels and fly lines, is just otherworldly. So I'm very fortunate. I can't think, it's got to be the best agent job in the industry, I would have thought, because they're the coolest set of guys. And when we do a sales meeting on these amazing rivers in Norway, and you're like, we just get this PowerPoint presentation out of the way and we can get away with them.
And I get the feeling that Guideline is very much a family. It's a family, and because the guys have been together for so long, and they you know, they've all evolved, haven't they, really?
Yeah, and they're so good at it, and they're so open at sharing the information. I mean, I've been really lucky fishing around the world, Anne, but from a fat lad from Yorkshire, I've managed to get myself around a wee bit, but those guys have taught me so much in the last 4 or 5 years. I mean, you see on the trout fishing and the salmon fishing, they are absolute assassins. And then they're lovely at sharing that information, you know, and that knowledge with everybody. They approach the salmon fishing in particular in a completely different way than historically we do in Scotland and Ireland. You know, the lines, the angles they cast, the flies they use, and man, those boys catch some fish, right?
Oh, well, do you know something on the Dee? Because the Dee is one of their favourite rivers. For the Scandies, oh my goodness, it is such a different attitude. And the other thing as well is that I just think the kit that they wear as well is just the cool. It's like, you know, everything that, you know, when they're on the river, they're just full on.
Yeah, the machines, aren't they?
Oh.
Yeah, it's just kind of brought up in a very outdoorsy kind of environment out there. You know, if you don't fish, you shoot, and if you don't shoot, you ski, and you can probably do all three. And from an early age, you kind of finding your way in nature, and that shows us the way they just got a really cool kind of attitude towards the fishing and the outdoors in general, really. I love them to death, those guys. They're great.
And the thing is that the range of products that they offer, I'm going to quickly put this slide up, but I don't want to talk about this slide at the moment, but everything that they offer,
I'm memorising the prices on all those.
Yeah, so
a lot.
The one thing I want to talk about is the new range of rods called Elevation. So talk about Elevation. I'm going to put a screen up.
Cool, yeah, so this was Guidelines. This is something that Guideline have been talking about for a while, really, and I think that the concept comes from the fact that we make our living on the back of and in harmony with Mother Nature, and as such, we have a responsibility to make sure that the products that are entering our countryside, where we chase these beautiful fish, is as sustainably sourced as possible. So if you look at something like that range of Elevation rods, every conceivable part of that rod, from the unground blank, the rings, the resin used in the cork, the all the fixtures and fittings, and pretty much every conceivable aspect of that image you're showing there has been sourced as environmentally friendly as possible right now. Now, there are still moves to be made and there are still improvements to be made, but this really was a statement from us about how seriously we are taking this, the environmental factors and our responsibility as a company in this world in these challenging times. So that rod in particular, the really cool thing about that rod, other than the green issue, is just how goddamn flipping light it is. The 9'5" weight, for instance, is the lightest 5 weight on the market, period. And the 14 and 15 foot salmon rods, man, if you can find a lighter salmon rod out there for 3 times the cash, and they're not a lot of money, they are incredibly, incredibly light. And that's due to the fact that Life, being an absolute wizard with all this stuff, has found a new way of kind of fine tuning how much carbon fibre and against how much resin goes into the construction of the blank. So they are incredibly light. I mean, incredibly light. The 15 footer feels like a 12 footer. The 5 weight feels like a 3 weight. It's great. They're a great range of rods, but the message behind them is important.
Oh, definitely. And would you say that companies are going to be going more towards the green construction of rods? And
I think the time's right, really. I mean, everything is driven really from a consumer perspective, you know that. So, and I think that probably until probably 2 or 3 years ago, I don't think the market, as much as we all love nature and we kind of enjoy it and touch it and get closer to it than most people as fly fishers, I don't think maybe the market was ready for it, but I think the message is an important one now, and I think the time is absolutely right. The retailers have been very happy with the message behind it. We feel a lot more comfortable knowing that we're looking at all the products in the range and reassessing them with regards to the impact. It's like, you know, the plastic spools that we've spent God knows how many years between us winding lines off and on. We did away with those. That saves 10 tons of those useless plastic spools, 10 tons in guideline sales. So we've replaced those with with a cardboard version, the same source cardboard, that type of thing. Everything to do with the packaging, you know, the rods, the fly lines, whether we continue to use fluorocarbon, everything's being assessed now from an environmental perspective. It's important.
It really is, and the consumer, when they actually buy that product, they know that they can throw it away, recycle it back, and it'll go back in. The other thing I was going to say as well is that with reference to the range as well, has this been covered by Trout and Salmon or any of the magazines? Is it coming into any of them?
Which ones? The elevation, you say?
Yeah.
Has it been covered? Yeah, no, it's had a bit of coverage. It had a bit of coverage. I mean, I think we did something in Trout and Salmon with Andrew and the guys over there on that side of it. Been pushed on our social media channels and on the website. The really cool thing is, in particular, during this lockdown thing, the sales on the single handers have just been spectacular. I think the message is important, of course, but it's a kick-ass range of rods. So when we could, like at the moment, right, we were all desperate to get to Scotland because Scotland's full of fish if we're living in England, and we've got nowhere to stay at the moment. So the trout fishing closer to home, I think, has been kind of accessed more readily than ever before, and that range of rods. You think off the top of my head, like the 9'5" weight's about 200 quid. Well, it feels about 200. It feels about 450, 500 quid before you put a line on it, and then it just feels absolutely priceless, quite frankly. It's a stunning range of rods. I love it.
Where can you buy these rods from? Are John Norris stocking them, or? Yeah,
so all the major players, you know, is with reference to fly fishers, supplying fly fishers. So the John Norrises, the Glasgow Angling Centres, the Finn and Gain, Angus Angling, you know, guys at Sportfish, Andrew Ryan at Clonanav in the south, in the Republic. In the north, you've got Serious Country Fishing, Serious Country Sports, those boys up there. So, you know, you can find it from any of your major retailers for sure. But yeah, the feedback on it's been been spectacular. And Con, you know Con from Taymount, don't you?
Con's so nice. Well, I'm going to put up a photo here. Well, no, can I put a photo of your dad, or are you just going to talk about Con? Because he is a star.
No. Well, just a quick thing about Con. Con is he's on our pro team. He is the head ghillie at Taymount. He's everything. You know, if you wanted somebody to if you were just getting into the sport and you were kind of 15, 16, 17-year-old young girl or a young lad wanting to get in, and you know, if you do as much fishing as Con O'Day and you're as giving and generous with your time, somebody will come and snap you up. He's an awesome caster and a fantastic fisherman and a lovely guy, and he's just done a piece on those double-handed elevation range. It's been slaying fish left, right and centre on recently. Go on, flash that picture of my dad, because I love seeing that picture.
Oh, I know, the photo of your dad. Tell us about this.
Yeah. So that's kind of, yeah. So this is a kind of a toughie for me, because I've been really lucky, as you know, traveling around the world, and I've fished in some incredible places, and I've caught some incredible fish. But last year, Dad's not been too well. Heart's been pretty ropey, and continues to be, but he's soldiering on, bless him. And he hadn't been fishing because he'd been poorly for quite some time. And we booked a couple of days with FishPal, you'd be glad to know. And we went up to Taymount, and Con took us out, and we had 2 days in the boat. And it was in August. It was really dry. There wasn't any fish about. There was a few. There wasn't any water. And then on the second day, Dad's getting tired. And then Con, I was looking at Con. Con was looking at me, and then we went down. We were on the bottom bit, going down towards the Lynn pool there. And Con's like, 20 to 6. We're gonna have to. I should be back, you know. And Dad's like, it's fine. And I'm not kidding. He made one cast, basically the last cast, and we saw this thing coming out of the depth, and yeah, it was that 18-pound fish. Yeah, amazing. And I remember coming down that pool with my dad and Con in the boat, and I'm not a religious guy in any way, shape, or form, you know, but I remember thinking, if there is somebody up there, if there is somebody watching, if somebody could just bolt this incredible old guy one last fish on the end of his line right now, would be the perfect moment. And it happened. Yeah, it was awesome. The most special memory I've ever had in fly fishing. Nothing comes close to that. And that's why this sport is so special, and because it brings people together, you know. Crazy. Oh, I'm getting all teary.
I'm so sorry, I'm joining you. And do you know something? Con, he's
a legend.
He is a legend. He's just fabulous. And if you haven't had a chance to go and fish Taymount and the Lynn pool of all pools,
yeah, amazing.
Oh gosh, yeah. Oh, one of the sweetest pools on the River Tay. So, talking about big fish, you and because I want to talk about the Untamed Angling European Ambassador.
Yeah.
Just tell us a little bit of who they are, actually, please.
Yeah, sure. So this is Rodrigo and Marcelo. Rodrigo from Brazil, Marcelo from Bolivia, who run a stable of super high-class lodges in the Brazilian and Bolivian government. They are undoubtedly some of the finest fishing lodges with reference to the standard and the level of accommodation and food that I've ever fished or stayed at, and I've been fortunate enough to stay arguably at the very, very best ones. And all that is done amidst the most incredible environment and fishing location on the planet.
Well, I've got a photo, and I just want you to talk me through this fish.
Yeah, that's meant. So that's like a couple of years ago now. See how tiny that river is, then?
Oh.
It's tiny, crystal clear. So for those of people who are watching who may have fished in New Zealand, the South Island, New Zealand, the west coast of New Zealand is about as close to anything I've ever fished. So we were sight fishing for these enormous predatory golden dorado, which behave like wrecking machines for a few hours of the day when they're just eating everything, killing everything. And then they kind of have this switch that they flick where they turn into the most paranoid brown trout the world's ever seen. And I actually got that right at the end of the day. So that's a long way away from civilization. That's 2.5, 3 hours in a small plane over the Amazon. Then it's another 2 hours up in a motorized canoe, and then that's a day and a half in poling punting canoes, and then that's about half a day's walk. And that was on a floating mouse. So the floating mouse was just going, and this thing came up. And when I hooked it, the guide said right then, he said, when you hook it, he said, if you hook it, you got to hold it. Well, I mean, it's like holding onto the back of a Ferrari. So I held it once, and I turned it away from a tree, and the flipping line slipped out of my fingers. It went straight across the river. It went round a tree trunk, jumped over it. He dove off the bank, swam out. So he's under the water wrestling. I could see the kind of dorado kind of doing this under the water. You know that thing when you get a fish snagged and like the lines kind of, fish is down here and the line's at a funny angle. And the next thing, the line snapped. So I kind of sat on my arse with like half a fly line. I was like, oh no, man, it's over. And the next thing, the guy, Guido, bless him, sorry, not Guido, it's his twin brother, his equal. Guido guides down on Tierra del Fuego, and his equal guides his camp manager at that lodge. He got the fly line, what was left of the fly line, wrapped around his hand, and this kind of golden dorado on the other side. Yeah, the Amazon jungle is the most incredible place I have ever been.
Wow.
I mean, it's incredible, and it's so incredible. I don't know what to say to describe it, really. You know, when you look at some things are so big and so vast, you can't wrap your head around. It's like when you look at the wealth of Jeff Bezos, you know, the Amazon guy, and you see all these kind of zeros here, and he's turned over $1 trillion or something. It just doesn't make any sense. And when you're flying over the Amazon for 2.5, 3 hours in a plane, and all you're seeing is trees, and you're nowhere near the middle of it, the scale of it is quite incredible. The most beautiful place on the planet. Yeah, amazing. It's so mental as well.
And you have, obviously, people can just go and check you out on Facebook to get information about this as well, because do you do hosted trips there as well?
I do. I take trips. I'm going for my 50 in November. So I'm older than Yoda now. So I'm going to go and in my 50th year, I'm going to take a group out to Rio Marie to fish for the peacock bass, which I did in giant peacock bass, which I did back in January. That's in the Brazilian Amazon. So I could have picked anywhere for my 50th birthday bash. So I'm going back into the Amazon. I love it.
Well, good on you. And I know that obviously you've been around the world fishing. Again,
yeah,
Argentina. Just tell us about it. Patagonia, sorry.
Yeah, that's my biggest sea trout, man. I've been to Argentina a lot. I've been really lucky. The crazy thing is I never really fish much, because you know when you're hosting trips, I've never been a host that would fish. Seems kind of weird. And people would say, well, what's your biggest sea trout in Argentina? Knowing I've done like 20 odd weeks in Tierra del Fuego, and you go, oh, no, no, it's about 14 pounds. I'm like, what? That's the average. I said, I'm not fishing though. But that week I did fish. I have started fishing a little bit more. Yeah, that was, that was, I think that was 21, I think, something like that. And I got it on, that was on an upstream nymph under a dry fly, bizarrely. Like kind of clink hammer duo New Zealand dropper thing. Pool was just full of fish and we just couldn't touch them. There was a big run came in and the flipping things were everywhere. And like me and my pal you know, we've both done a lot of fishing, and we were covering them, and we were trying lines and flies, and not even a pull, and the river was boiling with the thing. And we were like running out of time on that session, and the guy went, "I can get one of these if you don't mind doing something a bit weird." And I was like, "Yeah, whatever. I'll do anything to catch one of these." So they were all about that size, and he put this great big ugly dry fly on, and then just hung this size 12 prince nymph about 2.5 foot down underneath it, and then first chuck, it just slid away, and it was that. Yeah, Argentina's a really cool place. The people are amazing as well. The food's pretty good.
And the one thing with Argentina is that you really do have to be able to cast to go there, don't you? Because it's.
You know what though? I've heard that a lot, and I most of the time that wind blows off the Andes, it blows downstream.
Yeah.
And the way the Rio Grande is, just trying to, it just does this the whole way around. So you can always, I mean, I've had people there who've virtually never picked a rod up before, and they've all caught fish. Because if you get the wind behind you, you know, everybody thinks of Scott McKenzie. Bless him, Scott. Shout out to Scott. You know, because you can find a spot there where the wind will be helpful. If the wind blows upstream and it's strong, it doesn't matter if you are Scott. We're all going back to the lodge. You know, it can. I've seen it, and I've been down there, and at the end of a week, people have gone, "What are we on about? It's not even got remotely windy. What are you talking about? I've got all these clothes on, and like I've stayed there, and another group have come in, and it's been 130, 140 kilometers an hour, and we're literally two of us trying to drag a truck door open to get a client out because he's got sandwiched between the door and the fuselage of the truck. It's blowing all the water out of the river." So it's an amazing place. It's another place that would be on my bucket list. The jungle, that Argentina, without a doubt, just from a cultural perspective. And it's the last great sea trout river. There are still a number of great Atlantic salmon rivers. There's only one really, truly great for me sea trout river left on the planet, unfortunately, and that's the Rio Grande. So that one, if you're a destination angler, you need to tick that box. Fish are enormous. And the other one's Russia, probably still. I think I love Russia. I think it's just, it must have been like England and Scotland 150 years ago, you know. It's kind of wild and untamed and full of fish.
Well, I've got a Russian photo as well. I've done my research.
Yeah, that was Middle Varzuga last year. That was a crazy week. I got 107 fish. I mean, I know that sounds ridiculous, but but for a week, I mean, it was insane. All on floating lines, and all on little flies, and we were like fishing little hitches, and the thing with the Middle Varzuga, they're not big fish out there. That was probably one of the big ones for the week. But as far as sports concerned and getting your string pulled, I think that's the home pull, the Middle Varzuga, and at the kind of top end of it. Just stunning. And listen, I don't get as much chance to fish with salmon as I'd like to. One other thing about the COVID thing is I'm definitely making more time for fishing. That's just happening. And but when I'm out there, I just went completely nuts. Didn't sleep for 2 days. I just stayed in my waders. I must have stung.
You have started guiding again. So this, we honestly, because you know, you are there going on about all these fish, but if you know, you're up with the Scott McKenzies, the Ian Gordons, the Ian Fairgreaves, you know, you're up there with the guys who can catch.
Very kind, but those guys are super special.
You are very, very understated. You are, and you know that. But you started guiding, and this is a photo quite recent as well, isn't it?
Yeah. That's in Yorkshire. That's on the Swale. We've really enjoyed fishing the Swale this year. It's got some goddamn huge fish in it. I tell you what, it's got some brownies that have got me super excited. I had a pal of mine on there the other day, and I was guiding on the Ewer on Tuesday, and we should have been for trout and salmon, and we should have been on the Swale at that spot, and my mate had one 23 inches. which is a huge fish. You know, depending on I haven't seen a picture because he couldn't get a picture, he couldn't get his hand around it because it was that big. But 23 inches probably puts it in the kind of, certainly in the £5 category. But we up to salmon on the year on Tuesday, my client.
Yes. Oh, there is salmon on the year. So,
full of fish, man. Everywhere's full of fish, isn't it?
oh yeah, and it's just about getting out there, because I know Tom early on this week when we did the live, we were just talking about the places where people are catching fish, and it's about getting out there, because we don't know what the end of the season is going to be like. It's about getting out there, going fishing. But I just love, you know, not only the salmon, the sea trout that are in the systems, and of course beautiful wild-bone trout. Yeah,
it was a belter. We've had some crackers out of that river. We've seen some humongous fish. There's also that bit, some really nice barbel. So we're going to try and get, when the water drops, we're going to stalk a few big barbel in there. That'll be super fun. But you know, what you said about the salmon is really important, I think. I think, you know, there can't be any, we've not talked about this yet, but there can't be any coincidence that I speak to my accounts all over England, Scotland, Ireland, Wales. Every single one of them's full of fish. Every single one of them. So there has to be a correlation between all these super massive factory fishing boats hoovering up everything with a fin and a gill that swims our oceans, and this immense number of fish that are returning. Some of the stories I'm hearing about the ridgepool, the Moy, the Sewer having more fish in it than it's had for 25, 30 years, you know. And honestly, if you'd have seen those fish there was the lads on the opposite bank to us on the Ewer. I mean, I know the Ewer's got fish running back into the season. It's early July. It's 5 fish in the morning. They're everywhere. And the thing is it's because the big boats haven't been out, isn't it? No.
So yeah, and I just hope that these fish get the chance to spawn, you know, and able to get back out, because it is quite a daunting life. The fish do leave when they're out there as well, out in the sea. But I have the Atlantic Salmon Trust coming on later on these shows, and I've also got a guy coming on to talk about tuna.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, because the tuna population, because don't forget, in the 1920s and 30s,
and everything, right?
Yeah, Yorkshire coast was a tuna destination.
Yeah.
Even John.
I'll tune into that.
Yeah. So, but so obviously people can contact you for guiding, and I just wanted to show this photo of the guideline fly fish Facebook page, not Facebook, website. You know, you've just got some amazing ambassadors, haven't you?
We've got some brilliant ambassadors. We made a thing with them. Here's the thing with the ambassadors, right? Is that we undoubtedly now live in an age where there are more, everybody's a pro guide and everybody's an ambassador. And I'm not knocking that, because if you get a little toehold somewhere, you've got to grasp it. At Guideline, we look at things very differently. We have a small team. Everybody is there for a reason. Everybody on the team, whether you're a pro member or an ambassador, has served that apprenticeship. You will be considered to be an expert in your field, and so we keep that team small, and that means hopefully we look after the guys very well. They help us a lot with products and feed into that side of things. And we're a good bunch. We're you know, we just took a different approach, and we don't have lots and lots of pro members and ambassadors, and I wanted the best group I could assemble, and we're very lucky. Con, you know, with Kevin Schoen in Republic, Chris Haig, Lewis Hendry, Alex Jardine, you know, all the guys out there are doing a fantastic job, you know. I'm very proud of them. They're a good bunch of boys. They're good to fish with. They're good fishermen.
Yeah, and also as well is that they are, you know, you mentioned Alex Jardine, you mentioned Khan and everybody else. They are leaders in what they do, and follow them on their social media. Oh, just absolutely fabulous.
Yeah,
Fish.
yeah, they're living it, aren't they? They're living it, and that's the thing.
Yeah.
It's not a hobby. It's not even a life. It's not even a livelihood. It's just a way of life for these guys. That's the way it should be.
And they're also kind as well with their knowledge.
Yeah, 100%.
They share.
Yeah, that's the way it should be as well. It's just that, you know, there's no secrets. We're all here to. I say I've learned so much. I was fishing with Lewis Hendry.
Learn something new. And it's only going to happen fishing as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
People can get hold of you at the Yorkshire Fly Fishing School.
Best way to get hold of me if you would like to endure a day's guiding with me. And I'll be honest, it's an endurance task. I still like to finish early if the fishing's good. You can reach out to me on Facebook. Just search Jim Curry, or you can find me on the Guideline website. I'm on there. I'm on Instagram, Guideline Fly Fisher. But yeah, you don't have to look that hard to find my big bald ugly head on.
Well, what we're going to do is when this goes out next week, we're going to put a ticker tape along the bottom so people can actually get in contact with you. Jim Curry, absolute pleasure chatting to you again. It's been a long time.
It's been too long. I think London probably since last time we were hanging out having a beer.
Yeah. So, but you take care. Tight lines and
you.
Say hello to your dad as well and tell him well done on that fish. So you take care, my lovely.
Yeah.